Some men live by a strict code. They don't start fights. They don't seek revenge. But when they see injustice, they become the last person you ever want to cross. In The Equalizer, 2014, we meet Robert McCall, a quiet man with a past he refuses to talk about. He lives a simple life, until one brutal act of violence forces him to step out of the shadows. But McCall isn't just some ordinary man. He's a ghost, a legend, a nightmare for the wicked. And when he goes to war, there are no survivors. This is the story of the Equalizer, and why messing with the wrong man has deadly consequences. Robert McCall is just another ordinary guy. He works at a hardware store, keeps to himself, and spends his nights alone at a small diner with a cup of tea and a book. But if you look closer, something isn't right. His movements are too calculated, his posture is too disciplined, and his eyes, too sharp for a simple store worker. One night he befriends a young girl named Terry, who is trapped in a dangerous life she didn't choose. She dreams of escaping, but the men who own her have other plans. McCall listens. He never judges. And when she asks him if he was ever a hero, he simply smiles and says, "I was just somebody who did what they had to do." But what happens next will awaken something inside him, something ruthless. One night, Terry is brutally beaten by the same men who control her life. McCall sees her broken, bruised, and barely conscious. And in that moment, something inside him snaps. He calmly walks into a Russian mafia club looking for her boss, a man named Slavy. He offers a deal. "I'd like to buy her freedom." Slavy laughs. McCall tries again. $9,800 cash.
You have to give me $9,000.
$9,800 cash.
Fucking Americans think that you can come into my place of business and just buy whatever you want. I'm just fucking with you, man. But you've got very big balls.
Slavy stops laughing. But instead of taking the deal, he insults McCall and tells him to leave. Big mistake. McCall locks the door, takes a deep breath, and in exactly 19 seconds, everyone in the room is dead. Slavy never even gets the chance to scream. And just like that, the Equalizer is born.
And earmarks of a turf war between rival factions.
Following the murders, a Russian mafia named Teddy arrives in Boston to investigate what happened to Slava and his men. He teams up with a group of corrupt cops to gather leads, and so far, everything points to a gang hiding from a rival mob. Meanwhile, Ralphie quits his job to help his mother with her restaurant, which was supposedly burned down by accident, though it was actually set on fire by one of Teddy's paid cops. Frank takes Teddy to the workplace of a gangster named John Looney to continue his search for the killer. When John insults Teddy and Russians in general, an enraged Teddy strikes him with an ashtray, while Frank kills the other goons. Teddy continues to beat John unconscious. Meanwhile, two dirty cops, Remar and Peterson, extort Ralphie's mother for protection money, warning that another accident will happen if she doesn't pay on time next week. Outside, they encounter McCall, who plays a video he secretly recorded of them extorting a convenience store clerk, during which they confess to starting the fire at the restaurant. When the cops try to pull their guns on him, McCall quickly overpowers and beats them, leaving them no choice but to comply. Later, they return the stolen money to Ralphie's mother. Meanwhile, Teddy learns about Alina, one of Slava's girls, and questions Mandy about her. Mandy initially claims she doesn't know Alina well, but Teddy realizes she's lying and intimidates her into telling the truth. Left with no choice, Mandy confesses that she once visited Alina at the hospital and encountered an unknown but kind black man who had also asked about her. After extracting this information, Teddy strangles Mandy to death for lying earlier. With this new lead, Teddy finds surveillance footage showing McCall entering the restaurant but never leaving. Posing as a detective, he visits McCall at his apartment. Though McCall immediately sees through his disguise, he still answers Teddy's questions. Teddy ultimately leaves, sensing that McCall is far more dangerous than he appears. Later, Teddy digs deeper into McCall's background, only to find a spotless record with no trace of involvement in Slava's death. He begins to suspect that everything they know about McCall is fabricated. Determined to eliminate him, Teddy and his men plan an ambush outside McCall's favorite diner. He also plants one of his men inside, but McCall spots the operative right away and calls him out. The man pulls out a gun and walks toward McCall, but just then a truck pulls up in front of the diner, blocking Teddy's view. Taking advantage of the distraction, McCall swiftly kills the man by breaking his neck. He then exits the diner, snaps photos of Teddy and his men, and flees. After reaching home, McCall boils honey to treat a wound. Meanwhile, the angry gangsters silently arrive outside. They burst into his apartment, only to realize, to their disbelief, that it's the wrong one. McCall is actually in a nearby apartment watching them through hidden cameras. He has planted evidence suggesting he is leaving town, but Teddy remains suspicious, sensing something is off. In the next scene, McCall does leave town, but only to visit his old friends, Brian and Susan Plummer. It is revealed that McCall and his friends used to work for the CIA. Seeking Susan's help, McCall asks her to gather information about Teddy. When Susan returns, she informs McCall that the men he killed were part of the Russian mafia, led by Vladimir Pushkin. She also reveals that Teddy's real name is Nikolai, Pushkin's top enforcer sent to clean up problems. Susan warns McCall that Teddy and his men will not stop until he and everyone he cares about are dead. The next morning, McCall sets out to finish what he started. He first finds Frank Masters and traps him inside his car, which he rigs with a hose from the tailpipe. He gives Frank a choice: provide useful information about Pushkin's operations or suffocate. Frank eventually relents, taking McCall to a warehouse where the Russians count and stash huge amounts of money. McCall forces the gangsters to surrender, ties them up in a room with all the cash for the cops to find, and frees the workers, giving them a bonus from Pushkin's money. Meanwhile, Teddy calls in a team of Russian assassins to track down and kill McCall. The team leader goes to the restroom, but moments later, McCall emerges wearing the leader's bloody sunglasses. He then sits down with Teddy and offers him one last chance to walk away before he destroys the entire organization. Teddy refuses, arrogantly stating that he is not afraid of McCall. Later, McCall anonymously sends all the incriminating information from Frank's flash drive to the detective in charge of the warehouse bust. He also sabotages one of Pushkin's oil tankers, blowing it up along with several trucks and a warehouse. The incident catches Pushkin's attention, and he orders Teddy to eliminate McCall immediately. After much effort, Teddy finally discovers a photo of McCall with Ralphie, realizing he has found McCall's weakness. He has his men take Ralphie and other Home Mart employees hostage, blackmailing McCall. Teddy then tracks McCall's phone and waits for him at an oil terminal, but when McCall doesn't show, his henchmen prepare to execute one of the hostages. However, at the last moment, McCall lures the mafia away from the hostages and systematically kills them one by one. Teddy and his men storm Home Mart, searching for McCall. Eventually, Teddy takes Ralphie hostage, forcing McCall into a confrontation. But McCall outmaneuvers him and kills him with a Ramjet gun. 3 days later, McCall arrives at Pushkin's Moscow home while he's showering. Turning the lights on and off, he lets the sink overflow, unsettling Pushkin. As Pushkin grabs his gun and calls for his guards, he realizes too late that McCall has cut the electrical wires and left them exposed. The movie then fast-forwards a few months. One day, Alina, now recovering from her injuries, approaches McCall. She excitedly tells him she has gotten a real job and started reading. She also reveals that when she left the hospital, she found an envelope with nearly $10,000 among her belongings. Though she doesn't say it outright, she knows McCall was behind it. In the final scene, McCall has resumed his quiet life. One night at the diner, he receives a message asking for help. Without hesitation, he replies, "Yes." If you liked this recap, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for further dives into your favorite films. See you in the next one.